This segment is brought to you by JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com and use promo code PNF20 and save 20% off your next jig order today.
Let's go!
This is the Chasing the Tide Saltwater segment on the Paddle and Fin Network. I'm your host, Dustin Nichols. So come along for the saltwater shenanigans. All right, welcome everybody to another edition of Chasing the Tide Saltwater segment here on the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. I'm your host, Dustin Nichols. Tonight I got an epic guest, Matthew Vann. What's up, man? I'm stoked to have you on the show, dude. I've been waiting to get you on here. Stoked to have you on. What's going on tonight, man?
Awesome, man. I'm happy to be here. Just looking forward to getting down and getting dirty with you and letting you know what I got going on over here. So everything is all good, man.
Right on, man. Well, we'll start out with, just introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about yourself, hometown, where you live now, so family-oriented things and all that, whatever you want to dive into.
Right. All right, man. Matthew Vann, here in Pensacola, Florida. I was born and raised here, married to my wife, Stacy. I have 5 sons that range from 12 to 25. So that's like my main deal. That's my pride and joy. I grew up here basically fishing for bass, brim, catfish, the Scambia River, and all the swamps around it. Soon as I got out of high school, I pretty much tore out of here. I was ready to go see bigger and better things. Of course, you know how we are when we're young. We want something more than what we got. So yes. I headed out west and just, spent a lot of time fly fishing out there, salmon, steelhead, trout. I got that because when I grew up here, I was bass fishing and brim fishing all the time. But every summer we would go and spend a month up in North Carolina. So I picked up fly fishing at a very early age. My passion for trout's pretty deep. And so when I got out of high school, I really wanted to go out west and get into some of the bigger fish, bigger water. I lived the majority of my early adult life out there. And I ended up moving back to Pensacola right after Hurricane Ivan. So that was going to be 2005. And so, when I got back here, man, I'd been fly fishing all over the country. And so I just was like, man, I got to get out on the salt and see what this fly fishing and saltwater is all about. And so I was wade fishing primarily, redfish, speckled trout, stuff like that. I bought a kayak. I bought my first house in 2006 on one of our bayous here. And basically, I bought my first kayak to extend my range. I was wade fishing. I wanted to get away from the ramps, get away from people, just get a little further out. I was wanting to kind of chase some of the fish that I would see busting that were out of my range with my fly rod. Yes. So I got me a Heritage Redfish 12, and that's how it all started for me, man. And it progressed pretty quickly. Pretty quick. And pretty massively as far as kayak fishing. So
I could relate to that because that's what I moved to Texas in 96. And I had fished all my life growing up, boats, banks, everything myself. But, the same thing happened in Texas. I was like, man, I could pull off on the side of the road and walk into these spots and wade fish. So I couldn't wade fish in Georgia. And with that coastal marsh there, it's all mud. Right. Be up to your neck and mud and everything. Yes, so I was just like, man, it was like, and then that grew into that kayak bug when I was like, oh, man, I can get a kayak in here and go all up in here. And it was like, then that just, you increase your range again.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So I can totally relate to that. When I started out in a Perception Caster 12.5, same thing. It was bright yellow, and all my friends would make fun of me because I kind of did a black fade on the bow and the stern, and everybody called it the bruised banana.
Nice, I love it.
So I can relate to that, starting out on that low end, and then it just progressed from there. It just, it just took off, man.
Sure.
So fly fishing. So you still get to do that you do that now? You still
I don't do it as much as I'd like to. I fly fish, like I was going out west, still some to go out to like Montana and fly fish, every 2, 3, 4 summers if I could. For a while there, I was still going to North Carolina every summer to get into that. But yeah, around here, fly fishing for reds, fly fishing for tarpon. I really don't do it as much as I'd love to or like to. I got into tournament fishing, and so that kind of ate me up as far as obsession, traveling, and just being locked into the gear and being in practice with that. I mean, I still have all my fly rods and I love to do it, but I started out tournament fishing in salt for redfish with the IFA, because that was kind of like the longest running saltwater kayak series out there.
Right,
and,
right.
We didn't have a division in Florida where I lived when I first started. There was 2 other divisions, but my division basically was Louisiana. So I was traveling to Louisiana 3, 4, 5 times a year, and doing real well with that. I did fish the first KBF Open on Sandy Cooper, the first national KBF that there ever was. But that was like a long time ago. I didn't really do much bass tournament fishing. I did some onlines. But pretty much my deal was the IFA and some local offshore saltwater tournaments, stuff like that. And I had a lot of success with the IFA. Well, I guess we could get in. You want to get into tournaments and stuff later?
Yeah. We'll dive on into that too. But yeah, so you said you fished that original KBF tournament on Sandy Cooper. So you did kind of dabble back and forth. So,
right.
That transition from fresh to salt, especially targeted redfish, touch on that a little bit, because there's a lot of similar characteristics of them fish that
there are. A lot of people are intimidated from both sides, like going into it. But what I found, like I grew up, I never used a spinning rod growing up. Like I used a lightweight rod. For trout fishing until I started fly fishing, but like all my bass fishing from when I was like 5 years old and up was all with a bait caster. And so when I got, when I started fishing for redfish, I dove off, I got a bunch of saltwater, gear that would handle saltwater bait casters, the rods, 7 foot, 7.6, medium heavy, moderate or fast action rods, same stuff I would use for bass fishing. It was perfect for me, except, braided line. So a lot of the same baits, like my favorite top water forever has been a Hayden one knocker. I use that. I use Spook Junior. I use a lot of bladed jigs, saltwater, freshwater, spinner baits, inline and regular spinner baits, redfish, bass.
Oh yeah.
Jerk baits. I'm a huge jerk bait guy. Like if I had to pick one lure, it would be, a hard jerk bait. So love mega bass. So I'm throwing Vision 110s, 110 pluses, the trick darter. If there's toothy critters around, I'll have like a Rapala shadow wrap or a shadow wrap shad. So that's perfect, for bass or for speckled trout. So
definitely
a lot of the same lures, a lot of the same gear, and a lot of the same techniques, So I cross over really well in that regard. It comes really naturally to me. So, I have no problem.
I see that as a kind of an advantage at a little bit, being that to cross over back and forth, because you're understanding the fish in both areas. You're understanding how the redfish act and how the bass fish. When a lot of times in some of them coastal estuaries that have freshwater runoff, you'll catch both in the same area.
Oh yeah, man! I have a couple of my favorite spots here. I catch bass and redfish every time I go, in literally like back-to-back casts.
Yes. We have a couple places like that here that are the same way. It's very cool.
I mean, I feel like red fishing to me is a little bit more about, it's kind of hunting, sight fishing, looking for them. Bass fishing for me is very technical, very much more technical. And that's why I love it so much. Like, I've been known to take 13 rods in my pro angler when I'm bass fishing, just because I got a rod for everything I do. It's 3 different crankbait rods, a bladed rod. I mean, it's so I really love that aspect of it. And since I got so heavy back into bass fishing, especially the tournament scene, it really improved my red fishing and,
Oh, yeah.
and speckled trout fishing, just because just being more mindful of every little detail, because I often find like the subtleties of not only your techniques, but the way and the areas that you're fishing are what makes the big difference in being successful.
Right.
Like offshore fishing for bass, you know, most people just go
Yes.
back in the bank and just fishing their target fishing. But once you learn how to fish for bass offshore
Yeah.
and learn what's going on underneath the water, like that knowledge to me improved my redfish game like immensely, you know, because like I'm not just casting to the bank. I'm finding the ditches, the
Yes.
potholes, the edges of
Yes.
the bars, the pinch
Yes.
points. And even if
Yes.
in saltwater, a lot of times it's three inches difference instead of 10,
Yeah.
or, you know, but it's a
Yes.
huge difference to those fish. And so
Yeah.
that can really help an angler going back and forth in that
Oh
way.
yeah. Oh yeah. There's a guy on the water the other day at a smaller lake I was at, and he was beating the bank. He was catching fish, and then he was like, "Man, what are you doing? What are you doing way out there?" It's like, set the hook and like catch like a nice 20-inch fish, and I'm like, "Man, I'm yo-yoing a chatterbait out here." He didn't even know what a chatterbait was. So you got these guys that are out there that just never heard of things, and you know,
Right.
I like to be able to help. So I was like, "Hey, here, try one out." You know.
Oh yeah.
Give him one on the water. Hey, this is what you're doing. I'm targeting this deep grass offshore. It's just starting to grow up through about half the water column. And I'm ripping this thing out. You know, I'm pulling it out of that grass, and I'm getting a reaction strike because it had heated up. The fish had moved back out in that cooler water, in that shade of that hydrilla. And we're
That's right.
underneath there just, you know, and I was like, I'm getting reaction strikes from them. I'm ripping it in front of their face. So he's
Yeah.
like, man, that's so cool. I would have never
It
even
changed
done this.
world.
Yeah. But just
Yeah.
like you were talking about, you know, that little bit of depth difference in saltwater, you know, fish highways, you could call it, or the potholes and that creek channel that comes off of the flats, it leads back to a pocket and opens back up. You know that the little things like that you pick up on, that's a plus, especially by bass fishing, because I know I use my graph a lot, but I have lately, especially after getting side imaging, I had started to use that targeting my trout and redfish also.
Oh yeah.
Especially in the wintertime, fishing the deeper
pockets.
reef cuts. Yes.
Yeah.
That's been a big plus too. So, some of the areas you target over there in Pensacola, you know, what do you see changes as far as the season goes, as far as like a spring pattern to a summer pattern, or anything like that? Any tips you can give on that over there?
Yeah, so basically the way our system breaks down in my area is we have like 4 major rivers, and all of those rivers come down open up into bays. And then those bays are also connected to one another. And on the edges of all of those bays, there are little bayous and creeks. And so what we have here, you know, our trout will typically go to the river in the winter. So they'll go into the mud bottom bayous and up into the deeper like mouths of the river. And they'll stage up where they can find a more consistent temperature, as long as they have enough salinity. And even sometimes, man, I'll catch them way upriver in these deep holes, because that's where that water is not fluctuating so drastically.
Yes.
Our redfish, they're kind of everywhere. We have resident redfish up in the river, resident redfish in all these bayous. The main traveling of the redfish is going to be your bull reds, because they'll come in and then they'll go out, they'll stay offshore. I mean, we do have some areas, we have a few bridges here, one that's pretty famous called the 3 Mile Bridge that we do a lot of work on. And there are fish that are always there year round. But what happens is in the redfish will come into our system and they'll basically follow the menhaden around. So like when the menhaden are flushing out of the bayous into the bay, we have a thing here called the running of the bulls. And it's like 2 months of just balls to the walls, acres of them on top, basically throw anything in there and you're hooked up. It's kind of like NASCAR racing with boats and stuff. So it's kind of sketchy in a kayak, but But anyway, so seasonally, our trout, they're going to be the big movers, and obviously the flounder, they go offshore to do their thing and come back in. But our trout, they'll end up getting back out on the flats, on our shallow water grass flats, you know, end of February, March, definitely April and May, they're thick back out on the grass in the skinny, shallow water. The reds are pretty much out there year round. So you just kind of figure out what areas you like to fish best.
Yes.
Where the fish are out in the largest concentrations and what they're feeding on, and just choose that way how you're going to be most productive.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that wintertime trout bite in those rivers and bayous in that deeper water off of the drop offs. That's one of my favorite times of the year, because a lot of people aren't going to go out there when it's 40 degrees and drizzle.
Yep.
And I'll be out there by myself in a kayak catching 22 inch trout, counting it down and waiting. And I'll use that side scan and find them deep drop offs, and I'll see them fish in there. Yep. And I'll just sit on that one spot and pick them off and just have fun. Move on to the next spot. Same thing. And every now and then you're gonna get lucky and there's gonna be a big old red in there with it too.
Oh yeah.
And a big old trout in there with them. Yeah, there'll be a big old gator in there.
We catch our biggest trout in the winter here for sure, or at least the people who I fish with. I mean, obviously you're gonna get lucky and hook a big gator every once in a while on the flats with that one knocker, but we do a lot of slow rolling, like big line through swim baits. Savage Gear, Pulse Tail Mullet is like my go-to now, and so we'll be rolling 6-inch swim baits just as slow as you can roll them in these mud bottom bayous, and the mullet will be in there. They'll be all stacked up. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the coldest nights of the year are the best, because those mullet are in shock, and those trout they're predators, and they're advantage. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they're opportunistic feeders, and then that's what I've always touched on with some people that ask about that wintertime trout fishing, is that a trout 25 inches or bigger is going to by far go after that big 6-8 inch bait than that little bitty old 3-inch little skinny swim bait. They're not going to want to expend 5 different times trying to catch small bait. They'd rather expend energy to catch that one big bait fish and
just like a big bass.
Done. Yep.
Yeah, just like a I consider trout over 25 inches are kind of like bass over 7 pounds. Like they have very similar characteristics as far as what you're talking about, conserving their energy, making every eat count. But one thing before I forget that I wanted to touch on, that's very unique to our area, is our offshore kayak fishing. And that's a big part of my guide service. When I first started, for the first few years, it was primarily inshore fishing, but offshore kayak fishing really exploded. And Pensacola to Destin is very unique, because we have, especially Pensacola to Navarre, the DeSoto Canyon comes up out from Louisiana, and that deep, clear blue water, like really the best area for it is kind of like from Pensacola to Destin. And where I offshore fish, what's so great about it is there's a pass on either end at Pensacola and on Destin, and where I fish offshore is right in the middle. So boats have to come out of the pass and go all the way down there, and when they'd rather just go straight out. Right. So for the first 3, 4, 5 years of me offshore kayak fishing, we had like a little paradise down there. You'd hardly ever see any boats, but of course that quickly changed. But we got a great spring and fall run of blackfin tuna and sailfish here. Yeah, we're catching them in anywhere from 30 to 60 feet of water. We have an extensive artificial reef system where people have dropped a bunch of stuff, and now they've gone out there and they've used a lot of the BP oil spill money to create a huge system of artificial reef out there. And we catch snapper, 18, 20-pound snapper, grouper, triggerfish. We catch mahi in the spring, summer, and fall. Right. So it's pretty amazing. Like, you got the guys down in South Florida, they got deep water right off the beach. We don't have that deep water, but we've got an amazing artificial reef system, and we've got good, clean blue water. Yes. And you'd be surprised at some of the stuff that swims through out there. I mean, there's been like a half a dozen wahoo caught in kayaks here, which is really rare.
Y'all get a good cobia run over there?
Oh, and that's what we're famous for. We got the best cobia run, and
that's what I was going to say. That's pretty insane over there.
Yeah, and it's happening right now. Unfortunately, with all this COVID stuff, they've had our beaches shut down. They just opened it back up this weekend, and so we've missed a lot of the initial part of the cobia season. But one thing that we've learned over the years of targeting those fish is we actually in kayaks do a lot better kind of after the peak run comes through, because for us, it's hard to get out there and compete with all the sport fisher boats, these
towers,
5-story tall boats, you know, and it's actually kind of dangerous. But what we do is those fish will reef up. So like we will actually go and target those fish near or on our artificial reef
structure.
Near the structure. And so, you know, while everyone's, you know, running up and down, trolling the bar, we'll just go straight through our right reef and jig or drop down big live bait. And if you're specifically cobia fishing, you're going to drop. And if one doesn't hit it pretty quick, like if you start catching red snapper and you haven't caught a cobia, you just move, because cobia is going to eat. Yeah, they're going to eat if
they're going to eat it if it's there.
That's right.
They're going to eat
But
it.
you know, most people who catch them in a kayak here catch them when they're trolling for kings. So it's kind of an accidental thing. But we've learned a lot of little secrets over the years where we can kind of catch them pretty consistently.
Oh yeah, they like pink. They like pink. They like pink over here. Them pink, big hoagies.
Oh yeah, Hoagies are what we threw to them, you know, for years. Now we have the Savage Pulse Tail mullet, and
those look like, real good too.
Man, you're not gonna beat it. It's the most realistic thing I've ever swam. Especially
I need to pick up some of those. I need to pick up some of those. I've been eyeballing them, and those hooks that they have out now with the twist.
Yeah. Oh man, the grip hook. I'm telling you, redfish, trout, and bass. You can take that hook. Once you hook that braided line into your split ring, you can twist that hook 7 rotations easily. You know, so that's a huge advantage. You know, people think, well, the reason why everyone started that was to get rid of the split ring. Well, that wasn't really the reason. The reason was just to add twist to it. So what Savage has done is they've got a short shank, wide gap treble that they added that braided loop to, so that you can actually get those advantages, but you can do it quickly and just connect it into your split ring. And I have only lost one fish so far that I've hooked on the grip hook since I've started using them. And so, you know, and I've caught, the other day I went with my boys, and I, no joke, both the redfish that I caught, both were hooked in almost the exact identical spot underneath the chin, just out inside the gill plate, and just had one little bitty skin hook, and I landed both of them. You know, a lot
of times they're going to roll and shake their head, and they're going to get rid of that. Yep,
for sure.
Any little advantage like that's a plus. I'm definitely going to have to check those out. That sounds really cool. So
well worth it.
We'll get into bat. You know, we're on top of the tackle topic right now. So tackle box confessional. Let's get into that. Let's
all right.
So what we got? Give me some of a rundown on what's your favorite lures in your boxes for your certain species right now.
All right. So I'm a big time hard bait guy. I love throwing top water. So I already told you the Hayden one knocker. I like it in the baby spec pattern. I also always have a Spook Junior in the baby spec pattern tied on. So those two are always. I like the Seville Bonga Mini. You can't get that anymore. The new Savage Gear Mud Minnow is an awesome top water to throw as well. Always have a Mega Bass Trick Darter tied on, or a Vision 110. And if there's toothy critters around, I'm going to have a Shadow Wrap Shad, because they're like half the price.
Right.
The Twitch Reaper by Savage Gear is an awesome suspending. It's really more of a twitch jerk bait. It's kind of like Miradine, your large MR27. So I used to always throw Miradines, and I still do, but now I've got the Twitch Reaper. You can work it a lot faster. You can walk the dog with it. You can twitch and pause it. You can actually just reel it. I throw Paul Browns. I like the original, the Fat Boy, and the Broken Back. I've always got those with me. My soft plastics, I keep pretty simple. I'm really into the Pulse Tail mullet right now. I mean, I've caught so many fish on that since those baits came out. They got them from 4-inch to 8-inch. They've got a ready to fish, which is like just a hook, you know, a swim bait with a hook coming out the top. They've got a loose body, which is a weedless, that's got a kill weighted heavy duty Superline hook. So it's totally weedless. That's probably my favorite one, because it'll come through anything. And then they also have the line through in the 6 and 8 inches. So that's going to be tied on always. I love Slayer. I've been using Slayers for many years, the XL and the Grande.
Yeah, Chris makes some damn good lures. They got that good wobble to them. They got that
Right.
Yeah, they got a good rhythm.
Plastic. There's no plastic on the market. I'm telling you. That and Lunker City, they're made in the same place, and that plastic's the best. And then I'm always going to have like a fluke of some sort. I've always started Zoom, or I like the Turkey J.
Yes.
That way you can if the top water's a little too much, say it's slick calm, you can walk that dog with that fluke, or you let it sink a little and walk it subsurface like a twitch bait.
Yes.
That can save the day when they won't hit a top water. If I'm sight fishing, I'm always going to have the Savage Gear 3D Manic Shrimp or a Crank a Crab. If I can sea fish, I've got a Crank a Crab and a Manic Shrimp. If they won't eat that, you better take it to the house.
Oh yeah, definitely.
They ain't gonna eat anything. And then I love rattle traps. I throw them in for bass, and I throw them all the time in saltwater. And so for traps, I keep it pretty simple. Red eye shads, they work pretty good as long as you upgrade the hook. But one of my favorite saltwater crankbaits is the Bomber Super Pogie. It's an ounce and a quarter, and if any of y'all haven't used it out there, man, you got to check it out. It's a larger profile trap. It's got saltwater hooks. They make it in 3 or 4 different colors, and it's heavy, but you can easily burn it and keep it up out of the grass. I like to yo-yo it, like you were talking about yo-yoing your bladed jig. I'll rip it up and let it settle fall, rip it up, settle fall. I mean, my buddy Brandon Barton, he caught a triple tail, I think, in December at 3 Mile Bridge with that trap just laying on the bottom. Ooh. So, I mean, they just flat out catch fish. So I've always got that.
Man.
Offshore stuff. Savage makes a whole bunch of stuff I use. I always have that pulse tail limmy, the mullet, pitch bait. They got a great 3D squid that they're making. They've got glass minnow for a sling jig to get out there for bonita or small mackerel. I love the Yozuri deep diver, 20-foot deep divers. I'm a big pink believer. I love pink, or like a white broken glass or the blue broken glass. I tie up my own stinger rigs. I'll do a 3-hook stinger rig, which is basically like 2 treble hooks snelled onto a braided wire with a J hook to nose hook the bait.
Yes.
So I'm always trolling 1 live bait and 1 plug deep when I'm offshore.
Right. Yeah.
And I keep it pretty simple. That's basically my offshore setup. I'll have 2 trolling rods, a pitch rod, and then I'll have my bottom rod for going for the reef fish. Well, actually, but I have way more rods than that. I have multiple those.
That's what I was going to get into. The next topic I was going to kind of want to touch on was, as you said, bass fishing too, you could have 10, 12 rods. I'm the same way, and everybody's always like, why you got that many rods? I said, because I don't want to take the time to retie when I'm in a tournament. I'm pressed for time. I want to have everything. I want to have my backup lures laid out in front of me. So if I'm getting short strike on that frog or getting short strike on that one knocker, I got a spoon I can sling in there, or I got a fluke I can sling in there, and then finesse them a little more and get them to eat. And that's what I wanted you to touch on, that organization and prep, and how important that is to you too on tourney day especially.
Oh man, so everybody knows in a kayak you're limited on space. Even though a lot of us have really big kayaks, you still want to have your gear as organized as possible. And even if you take all this stuff with you, you want to have it laid out simple and easy. And I mean, I am, blessed / cursed with a bit of OCD. And so I have I have like a system to it all, like you're talking about having a backup pitch bait, like if I'm fishing for redfish, I have a pulse tail mullet ready to fish. I've got a pulse tail mullet weedless. I've got my manic shrimp if I see a fish right there, and I've got my 1 knocker. They're all in the same place that I always put them. They're laid out ready to cast. Like you said, I do the same thing. I've got my backup lures position. I know exactly where my jerk bait rod is, always right here. My twitch creeper, and so like when I'm in the moment, I can just do it without even thinking. So I keep my kayak as organized as I can possibly while I'm fishing, especially in a tournament. And when I'm tournament fishing, I might have, if there's a jerkbait bite, I might have 4 jerkbaits rigged up, ready to go. You know what I mean? Or if it's going to be a good topwater bite, I've got 3 top
Yes.
You know, or if I know I'm going to be jig fishing, I've got a swim jig, I've got a football jig, and I've got a bladed jig.
Right.
And so the more you can really think about that beforehand and get it organized in your mind, even write it down if you have to.
Yeah.
And the more you do that, you organize your gear, your tackle, and get a system of how you really approach your attack. The more you do it, the more natural and comfortable, you know, it'll come.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I set my kayak up the same way every time. My rods, if I'm going to be fishing the same style baits, I know exactly where they're at. I can reach behind me and grab that rod with a gulp and a popping cork, or I can reach behind me and grab me that jerk bait. Or if like you said, top waters, I could have 3 different on. You know, I could have a Spook Junior, a big one knocker. I got a guy here that paints me some customs. You know, they might like something a little more subtle, little less noise. You know, they might want something higher pitched like a she-dog. You know, you never know until you're out there. So, you know, I'm not going to sit there and retie. I'm going to have a couple different ones tied on. And, I mean, there's times I'll have, you know, 3 different rods with chatterbaits when I'm bass fishing. You know, I'll have three different colors. Gold blade, green pumpkin. Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Yep. You got to break it all down.
Too, I'm really big on safety, you know, so I like to keep all of that stuff organized as well. You know, I always have, you know, my PFD. I've got a fully charged VHF. I carry a fully charged big Mophie juice box with my phone charger, just in case you were ever out there longer than you thought. Always have a handheld bilge pump because I have had some really dicey things happen offshore where I've taken on water and stuff like that. I always have a sealed first aid kit that I vacuum seal that stays in my kayak always. Whistle, reflective mirror. I have a flag with a light on it. And, you know, I preach that. You know, I preach that safety. I've been all about it for years. I've got 5 sons that I want to come home to. I've taught and educated in seminars, and I can't stress that stuff enough. I know people think it's cliche and they get tired of hearing it, or you know, oh my God, you wear a PFD when you're in 3 feet of water. Well, yeah, I do, because I feel weird without my PFD on. Like, and you know, it's my tackle box on my body. And it gives me so much confidence. It's like when I'm trout fishing, fly fishing, my waders, they're just a part of my uniform, you know? So, I mean, I feel awkward now when I don't have my PFD on my kayak.
I'll touch on that for people and give you some perspective. Okay. I taught water survival instruction in the Marine Corps. I've surfed all over this world. I surfed in Hawaii, Big Sunset Beach. I didn't wear a PFD, but I got a surfboard attached to my leg via a leash. That's my lifeline on that board. If I lose my board, I got to swim back to the beach. If I can get back on top of my board, I can get out of the harm's way and get out of that impact zone, or duck dive under the wave and get away. You know, everybody's like, well, why are you wearing that PFD? You're only fishing 3 foot deep flats. I said, you never know what's going to happen on the water. And I get so tired of hearing these people bad mouthing, oh, PFD Nazis, this and that. No, man. There's been too many people that have lost their life. Since kayak fishing got so popular. And these people they get on the water and don't know anything. It's like that's why you got to have an initiative to kind of get this stuff out here and get the people safety oriented, because I got kids that are trying to launch at some of these spots I fish with no 360 light, no PFD, nowhere, not even on the vessel. And you're like, dude, where's y'all PFD? Oh, we don't have one. Well, you're supposed to have one on the vessel. You got a whistle? It's before daylight. You got a light to mark, or at least a flashlight? No. I'm like, man, that's a big chunk ticket right there. But most of all, your life's more important than getting out there and trying to catch fish right now. And they just want to snap back. Realize how hard,
it's so hard for boats to see a kayak. And kayak, even though we think kayak, everybody knows about kayak fishing and stuff. I mean, it's really popular right now. Most people are aware of it, but like, people have been fishing out of boats and they've been doing what they do forever, you know? And so like, they're not even thinking about a kayak. And so you want to do everything you can to be as visible as possible, as prepared. I mean, I've taught this for years. You don't want to be figuring all this stuff out when an emergency is happening. No. You want to have a plan. You want to have all your gear. You want to have thought through this. You want to practice getting in and out of your kayak when you've fallen in. And a lot of people don't do that. You know, you want to practice your recovery, practice your surf launches, practice swimming back in on the back of your kayak. You know, it sucks to figure all that out when when the SHIT hits the fan. You know what I
Yes,
mean? You want
exactly.
to have it all figured out prior to that.
Because if you don't,
So,
that's when stuff's going to happen. It's going to go wrong.
yeah.
Like
and
you
it's
said,
not if. It's
that SHIT can go sideways real quick. I'll tell you that right now. I've seen it.
Sir.
You know, I've seen it. So, man, that's a great subject to touch on. I really hope people, you know, take notice of that right there, because that's something I can't preach enough. You know, you know, we got to be safety oriented out there, and if somebody is in danger and you're near enough to help out, that's even more of a plus that you can help out too. So, you know, we're a band of brothers on the water. We got to watch out for one another out there, because I know the boats don't watch out for us.
I've had to sacrifice the last 2.5 hours of my tournament one year at the IFA because one of my brother's kayak was sinking, and we were like out in the middle of a pass in Grand Isle. Yep. And his kayak was listing so hard, it took 3 of us to safely get him and his kayak back to. And it wasn't even a thought. I'm like, tournament, brother in need. Yep. You know, let's do this. Let's go. You know, we made it fun. I mean, it was kind of sketchy, but so yeah, it's all about safety, having fun, learning how to be more efficient. Everybody wants to catch fish, but you want to come home to your family, man. That's got to be the priority.
Definitely. Well, speaking of tournaments, you know, when you see, if you're going to watch this on YouTube, you'll be able to see all that hardware I'm staring at on the screen right now. So it looks like you've done pretty well in some of them over the years. So, you know, I know you spoke of IFA. You know, we've had a few come through here and out in Texas, you know, and man, I was really looking forward to kicking off this season out here in it, because the first one on the schedule here in Texas was in my home waters of Port Lavaca. And I was looking really heavily about, man, this is a good time of year. It's going to be on.
You got to try it, man.
But it's July. Yeah, I fished a couple of them at Port Aransas and did okay. You know, it's just, you got to find the right fish and get them measured and stay on top. But yeah, they run a good show, man. They run a good show, definitely.
Yeah, they do. So that's kind of what I've done the most of. I was fortunate enough to win the championship in 2016, which I can't remember how many years I had been fishing it before that. It took me a while, because like I say, Louisiana was the division I was fishing, which is, you know, anywhere from 3 to 6 hours from my house. So there's not a lot of pre-fishing involved. And, you know, my buddies who kind of introduced me into it, they were all wanted me to come, and they were sharing just enough information to keep us coming and taking our money. And right. And then we started finally figuring things out. But I won the championship in 2016. They actually had the championship in Panama City Beach that year. And I told them, I said, well, they have one over here. It's going to be a different story. And I was fortunate enough to take that one. I actually won. I went back-to-back National Angler of the Year in 17 and 18, which was a huge deal for me, man. I'd had a lot of success, you know, with placing in the top 3, top 5, second place. Yes. But when I won that championship, like, things really started going good for me. Getting more consistent with my finishes. And those series of wins are what ended up getting me qualified for the Hobie Fishing World. So in 2016, I fished the Hobie World 6. That was in Leeville, Louisiana, which is where I fished for, not Leeville, but Louisiana. That style of fishing has what I had been doing, you know, seriously for like the past 5 years. So I ended up getting 3rd place in that, which was just incredible. That was awesome. Like my best. I mean, even though it was 3rd, it was anglers from all over the world, in the most extreme conditions I had ever fished. And I felt really fortunate and blessed to come out with 3rd place in that. That's that killer trophy right there with the fish mouth.
Slam. With the slam.
Yeah, the slam. Nobody caught flounder, but then after I went back-to-back National Angler of the Year in 17 and 18, I got an invite to go and fish Hobie Worlds 8 in Queensland, Australia. So, like,
awesome.
For me, man, fishing in a kayak, like, I got to go the furthest place away from my home and fish somewhere that I've dreamed of going my whole life. One of my main sponsors, Crank a Crab, is from there. Yes. I already had so many friends from the fishing community there. So when I got there, man, I mean, I can't even tell you how they rolled the carpet out for me and just treated me so well. And I didn't get the finish that I was after. I think I ended up 16th, which I was still proud of that finish. I just lost a few key fish during the tournament. But for me, it was all about the experience of going to the other side of the world, somewhere that I always dreamed about going. And my wife got to go with me. And we had like a dream 2 weeks, you know,
wow.
and it was just really, really incredible. So those are my two probably highlight tournament experiences. I've really been missing the tournaments because I've been serious tournament fisher, you know, angler for, you know, gosh, going on a decade now. And I really miss it, but I'm going to be honest with you, man, it's been nice to have a break. I've really enjoyed spending time fishing my local waters and with my family. I kind of sacrificed a lot of that local fishing time because I had to. You know, you got to keep a balance in your life. You know,
right.
Some guys can fish all the time, but I've got kids at home. I've got a wife. We both have our own businesses. You know, so I really, the past 3 years, have sacrificed a lot of my local fishing so that I could travel and go and do these, you know, week gone tournaments, you know, here and there.
Yeah.
So that's some advice I would tell people. You got to find the balance. You know,
definitely a balance. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, that's what the year started off good. We had all these opportunities given to us with the Hook Bass Nation events and everything else. You know, I saw you at Seminole when I had the dang kidney stone and
it killed me, man. I was like, we were hanging out and then you were gone. And then I started hearing about a kidney stone and I'm like, no.
Yeah, man, it was pretty bad. Bad. Yeah, it was rough, but then, you know, with all this COVID-19 mess and all these tournaments, you know, a lot of them got postponed or canceled. So, you know, looks like we might see a couple popping back up in June and July. I know we've been running some here. We've done a few online stuff, COVID Classic and all that.
Right.
But I know I'm really looking forward to that Bayou Coast Fishing Club.
Man,
Fallen Tide, is that what the one it is?
Fallen Tide. Yeah, and you know that's been one of their most successful, longest running tournaments, and they have been their club, my local club, and the club in Mobile have been working for a few years now, coordinating with Hobie to try to get us a Hobie Worlds qualifier down here. And they got it, man. I'm telling you, if you have any desire to come and experience an amazing fishery I mean, they are, that club, hands down, is the best club I've ever been a part of. I mean, I live in Florida. I'm a member of that club, have been for years. I fish as many of their tournaments as I can. They are a fantastic group of guys. They're very competitive, and they will cook. They will throw down. I mean, if you like to hang out, have a good time, not just drinking, party, and eating good food, fellowship, camaraderie, that's what they're all about, and helping them have a good, successful time. And I
met all of them at Seminole, and then I ended up having Sean Rastanis on the show, and we talked about Fallen Tide, and I said I'm definitely going to have him on again, you know, a month or so before that event and kick it off again, because I'd like to get a group of Texas guys to go over, because that's it's a true slam tournament. It's a Hobie Worlds qualifier. That's going to be an insane event. You know, they're going to make that pastelaya. They're going to cook it up. They're going to have some good times. It's like, man, that's what I miss about the tournaments most of all right there, is that fellowship and that camaraderie.
That's where it's all about.
Hanging out, you know, man.
I love to get trophies. I love to win money. But you know, for me, it's all about seeing you. You know what I mean? Like, we knew each other all these years on Facebook. We finally get to see each other. Boom. You know, I got so many friends. That's why the bass thing has been huge for me the past few years, because like I've been such close friends with all those guys. We're teammates on a lot of our sponsors, and now I'm like getting to know this huge community of people in a deeper way. And it's just incredible, man. And let me tell you, you have got to get a group of guys from Texas, because y'all's skill set, the way y'all fish over there in Texas, will translate so good to Louisiana. Way better. It's way more similar than what we have here. Like, you know, it's and I'm telling you, there's nowhere like Louisiana when it comes to redfish. Like, it's just.
I'm planning on going, because I'm telling you, one thing that this COVID did do for me was make me not burn up all my vacation right now on other tournaments. So I'll have some left over for the end of the year.
That's good. That's good.
I'm planning on making that one. That's a trip that Ian and Sean definitely talked me into, because that seems like it's going to be a mighty fine event. So I'll be good to go. So before we wrap this up, I got one. I'm gonna put you on the spot about your favorite species, your absolute favorite fish to catch.
Oh,
You had
God.
one, just one. Give me that one
Man.
fish right now on the spot.
It should be pretty easy, but for me, it's not. If I have one, I mean, it's just not. It's not that easy for me. You know what I mean? Like, if I had to pick one, I'd probably say bass, just because they live everywhere and it's so technical and it's beautiful. But like, there's nothing like tarpon. Like, nothing can compare. I mean, until you've experienced it. I mean, it's the most frustrating but most rewarding fish, obviously, to target. And then I have a huge passion and obsession with large speckled trout. So, for me, those are the three big ones: tarpon, speckled trout, and trophy class bass. If I had to pick one, man, it probably would be bass. And that sounds crazy because of where I live, but tarpon, I love them so much, but I hate them.
It's a love-hate relationship.
Yes, it is.
And the big speckled trout could be that too, because I've had plenty of them. I've had plenty of them shake their head and sling my lure right by the kayak, and they're big, some big girls. They'll break your heart. They'll break your heart real quick.
They do. They're good at it. They're probably tarpon and big speckled trout are by far the two most difficult fish to land, I think.
Yes, sir. Definitely agree. I've had the opportunity to catch some of the smaller juvenile tarpon in some of our, river estuaries around here. Then we actually have some snook moving in a little bit further north. Yeah, I've caught snook up in my area. They're actually a lot more prevalent now, being that we've had milder winters and all that kind of stuff. We've actually had a lot of mangrove.
I had no idea.
Up and all that. Yeah, I've caught two in the last year.
That's fantastic.
Nothing giant, but I've caught some. I mean, they've caught them up towards Galveston already. Yeah.
Somebody will catch one here every year, but it's like, 15, 16 inches, and it's in a creek, but they don't do it here because of the winter. We actually get a winter here.
Yeah.
So.
Cool deal, man. Well, dude, I'm stoked you got to come on, man. It's been been waiting for you to get on here and get all this wrapped up and let everybody visit with you a little bit on this podcast here in this podcast world. So right now I'm gonna give you the opportunity to give a shout out, support, sponsors, anything. What's on your mind? Go ahead and give everybody some thanks if you want to.
Yeah, man. First of all, Hobie Fishing. I've been with Hobie since 2013. They're a huge part of my life, not just the kayak that I'm in. Those people are like family to me. I've been real fortunate and to have those people as my sponsor and family, and I love them to death. NRS is a huge sponsor for me. They keep me in all the best clothing and safety gear and keep me warm and dry. I got a real great relationship with those guys. Torqeedo, what more can you say? That gets me where I'm going: quick, fast, quiet, clean. Very grateful to be a part of that. iRod is my rod sponsor, Matt Newman out in California. He's got a great rod right now, great rods for a great price. I'd put them up against any rod on the market. Yak Attack, I've been with them. Luther was the first person to ever sponsor me back in the first KBF days, and I love him to death. He's a great person in the community. Yes. With Picasso Lures, I love their lures. Anything bladed, spinning, jig, they got it all. Great stuff. Cranka, love those crabs. Cal Coast Fishing keeps all my gear organized. Boondocks gets me to the water, and then probably my sponsor that I'm most excited about, which is new to me this year, but I've been using their products for years, is Savage Gear, and I can't say enough about the product that Jose Chavez is putting out right now. We got some great stuff on tap that's coming that's going to blow people's mind. And, if you don't know about that Pulse Tail mullet, man, you better go get you some.
I'm getting me some of them.
Do some of them and just tie it on and just chunk and wind, baby. And it'll do work for you. But that's pretty much my sponsors. I've got a few more, but that's the main meat of my sponsors. And they all take real good care of me, and I love them to death for it.
Cool deal, man. That's a solid lineup, man. That's some great companies in there. But I'm gonna have to take you up on that Savage Gear tip and get some of them. I've been eyeballing the Pulse Tail mullets. I just hadn't pulled the trigger, but I'm definitely gonna get some of those and put them to work. I'm gonna have to put them to work.
They're well worth it. They're well worth the money. You won't find a better, more realistic swim bait that actually does the work for the price on the market. I mean, I've been throwing big swim baits for many, many years, and I've spent ungodly amounts of money on them. And that little lure right there will do everything they'll do. I promise.
Oh yeah, sweet.
Yep.
Cool deal, man. Well, thanks for joining me tonight. I want to say thanks to all the listeners for checking the show out. We enjoy having y'all get on here and give us a review and let us know how we're doing. So hit 5 stars, give us some likes, share this thing. Once again, we thanks Matt for coming on tonight.
Yep.
And thanks again, everybody, for listening. Chasing the Tide, Saltwater Segment. I'm Dustin, and I'm out.
Thanks, Dustin.
Thank you, bud.